I'll start with a dream this morning. Then I'm going to do a demonstration. Or I'll start with a demonstration and do the dream. And then I'll hook it all together with a philosophical meditation on some kind of sense of, we could call it life, death. We could call it impermanence, permanence. And ultimately, I want to call it a little lecture at the end as I close this of a drawing of a model on fearlessnesses. Yes, you got it. Fearlessnesses. Beautiful word, all those letters. And if you just look at it poetically and visually, as I do as an artist, not just as a philosopher or thinker, but I just love the stream of those. Speaking about streams, I filled the jar with a stream. I opened the jar. I am the rock. I picked it up this morning from my driveway. Entering the stream, closing the lid. Path of life. The dream, one I've had before, a very basic, simple dream. It involves me, typically with my partner or somebody I really care about or somebody who's really involved in my life. And last night it was with my wife, Barbara, my life partner. And we're going into various places. I'm leaving, and these places are in a city of some kind, and I end up going onto someone's property. Very childlike in a way, very innocently, and I'll go onto their property and some go into some places, sometimes right in their home, sometimes on their porch, in some way just entering as if there's no boundaries. That their existence, their life, is part of my life and existence. That would be the kind of implicit assumption that the dream consciousness, the unconscious part of my being, and not just my being, but I would say all being, all existences, is that everything is existent. And so my existence is moving in and with other existences, and they are moving in with my existence, the I amness of existence. And then in the dream, this typically happens in this repetitive series, set of series of dreams I've had for years. The owners, they appear, and my wife is all freaked out. I'm not so freaked out. I just go, okay, now what? There's an encounter going on. And some part of me does not want to see it as the enemy has appeared, and I do not want to see myself as the enemy. And in fact, I think that is part of the teaching of this dream, of the unconscious. There is no enemy. These are existences existing within and a part of each other. Well, language, of course, is very difficult to describe what is probably a non-dual sense of reality that is going on in existence, capital E, but I have to use small e existence languages, small self existent language that we have to use as a tool to try to describe the experience of existence, or self, big self, big E. The dream then proceeded to this father, husband, and his family and kids were there, and he had this big string like rope, like a something that he was going to wrap around me. It was like a weapon, is the way I perceived it. Now, it's possible I was misperceiving that as an initial reaction, a fear-based reaction to his coming on, but pretty much the scene, right? The impressions of my daily life in the banal world, this world that we live every day. But in the dream world, I had the option of maybe not perceiving it that way, but I did perceive it more or less as a threat. Even though I stayed very present, I didn't try to run. My wife was sort of cowering and hoping, oh my God, get us out of here. And I sort of always get that feeling of, Michael, why did you drag me into this mess? I shouldn't have followed you. And yeah, all of those in the background. And she, my partner in this dream and in life, really represents all of the human beings conditioned in this world. And I'm attempting always to live in this world of the fear matrix and not of it. That's been a long path since 1989 as a conscious choice. When I started the In Search of Fearlessness project, which was really a life path for me, but it was also a project that had started with another woman at that time. We birthed this together, and then she left the project after 9 months, and I've continued the project, the path. Of course, anybody can walk this path. But I have come to be a teacher of this path, one of the many teachers of this ancient path, fearlessness. But fearlessnesses is really my way of thinking this morning about existences and how they get along together and or not get along together, and all obviously at some level coming to a sense of life. The jar of water, the stone dropped in, which I picked at random out of this path of many stones, and plopped it in, and that existence will move forward until there'll be a point. And this comes in the dream too. No, I'm not going to drink the stone down and swallow it. The jar is emptied of the water, the lid is taken off, and the stone falls out of the jar, or the jar is broken, and the stone returns to the gravel on the stream. I also am coming to my experience of existence, non-existence through this process of getting old and dying. So my birthday is in a few days, 71, plus 9 months in the womb, almost 72 years. And I realize I will not be here for much longer, relatively, in this form. So in the dream, when I'm challenging this person who's basically saying your existence cannot be in our place owned of existence, you are on our property, you're in our house, we've told you before. And I always have that in the dream when I get these encounters, when I'm doing this so-called transgressing or trespassing onto the other, their place, that in this society, in a capitalist world, is said that they bought it, they own it, it's theirs, do not cross without permission. Well, I don't live that way, and I don't believe that is actual reality. I believe that is completely a false reality that's created as an illusion of the self, ego, and the connection to the power of money. And that is all hooked to a power of an entire fear matrix of a particular exchange economy, which is not a gifting and hospitality based economy. It's not matrixial, it's not mother based, it's not based in creation. It's based in these very narrow concepts. In a way, that's what the jar is too, right? It's a narrow concept of this is my existence. If I'm that stone dropped into this jar of water, but at the end, you can see it's kind of uterus like, and in the end, I will be both freed from that, and that will be what we call a passing or death, mortality. But in the dream, this is the end of the encounter I'll describe, and then we'll go on to the model of fearlessnesses. I confronted the father, the man, the owner, big, very big character, I remember. And I was quite challenging in saying, okay, I get it, you know. And I didn't want to get too close to him because, yeah, he could throw this chain around my neck, and I felt, okay, yeah, I'd be in danger even more. And what good is that in the moment? So, considering all those options, I took the option of, okay, we'll get off, we'll move on. And so I remember his family coming out, and they were kind of walking down and away from the property, and I kept going, okay, what are we going to do now? Are they going to take me to court? Are they going to call the police while we're walking on their cell phone? But Barbara and I just kind of walking away, and there's this constant sense of this feeling of guilt that I have, that I also am at the same time resisting feeling guilty, and at one level not even feeling guilty at all, because that is not the right emotion for existence. I have no guilt to be anywhere in existence, and that will be in my final process of the material body going to particles, atoms, energy. That existence again, one will move into other existences without signs of trespassing and threats of how dare you come on our property without our permission because we own this. No, you don't own it. Nobody owns the earth, the land, the water, the air, the stones. Nobody owns my existence or yours or ours or it. No commodity. That existence in the dream, part of me was going with the flow now, walking with them. Okay, I'll sort of agree with you. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be on your property, so called. And so I'm kind of going with that to communicate and connect. I have to live that reality too, also, both and in with this other, call it a spiritual existence, an existential existence beyond the manufactured consents, conformity, taboos, fear-based structures, architectures of living on this planet in the banal world of the ordinary, the quotidian, the everyday. And we walk together. I'm seeing this now upon reflection. I wasn't aware of all this in the dream, of course. And then we get to a place, and I'm holding this tennis ball for some reason. The family and the members are all walking a little bit ahead. I'm still wondering what's going to be the outcome of this transgression that I've done. And again, it's not the first time I've done it with either him or another family in another situation. I've had that dream, as I said, as a serial dream. But I really got the teaching from this morning for the first time. After years and years of experiencing that kind of a dream. And what I was aware of is that here's the crunch, I think, when I had the tennis ball and I said to the family quite loudly and just really spontaneously, okay, it was like I'd been thinking of a solution to this problem that we're in. I'm in with them. And I put out a solution in a way. And I can't remember exactly. I'm just going to try to fake my way through what I said. So you don't want me here. You don't want us here, meaning my partner and I. You want to be alone on your place. You really, and I remember emphasizing, almost yelling, you really don't want us here. I'm just feeling all kinds of resonances in my whole being when I say that. Yeah, that's like a message I've gotten from this whole planetary experience here in this world I was born into since 1952, that I was conceived in, is this package, this jar that says, this is it. We really don't want you here. And when the family then turned around, and particularly again, the father head of the family was speaking for the family virtually, responded, exactly. You got it. I didn't use those words, but that was the message that came back to me, maybe telepathically or telepathically. And immediately I registered it and I threw the ball in the air to him to catch. That's when I woke up from the dream this morning. It was like, okay, that ball represented, okay, I'll put the ball back in your hand. You can play your game with that ball. I had the ball for a while and I tried to change the rules. I tried to make it a better, quote, society is the best I could understand. One more real, more authentic to the existence itself. And that would be fundamental to walking the path of fearlessness, as I call it, out of a world of the fear matrix, which constructs everything within that ownership deficit based me, mine, not yours. What we call a dualism philosophy and logic and theology of, if I've got the money and the power and I can own, you don't own it. Only one can be on the deed. Funny word, right? Be on the deed of what? Whose deed? Is this God's greed? Yeah, interesting slip. Is this God's greed that you created and projected onto the divine principle of ownership, which we know that was done with white European settlers who came to North America, and particularly in the States, this great story of they have a law, the divine right. That's not exactly what it is, but there's a policy, a law, and only white people were real humans and therefore could only be real humans who own real land and property. Therefore, all of you who are not of the white European origin and source, you do not have the right to the land that you've been living on actually before we got here. Yeah. Whoa. Okay. So you can hear there's a lot of resonance here of existence and the right for existence that gets muted down into these very thin, flat, capitalistic, ordered, hierarchical, pathological, dominating worldview complex that we're all negotiating no matter what, more or less. Some of us are more free of that condition or not. So let me mark out now the path of freedom. Obviously, if I've constructed some kind of jar, right, of containment, even though this is still a beautiful life in its own way, but it will end. As I said, the lid will come off, it will be poured back, the water will back into the stream, the stone back amongst the bed of stones along the creek or the river, and that existence will carry on till the next jar appears, takes up the water, takes up another stone. And that's all a metaphor, right? That's a performance of what I was just doing there, of what feels like my personal sense of existence in the jar. And when I threw the ball to the people, I knew they do not want to live by hospitality. They do not want to live in the sharing space, time, life, sharing existence in non-life as well. Sharing might not be a word that you would associate with non-existence of a self, but I think you just think of the planet all as cosmos, all as all it is. It's like it cannot not share all of what all is. But we humans, and no doubt there's maybe other choices of other creatures that are choosing certain kinds of exclusion principles. And that's a good possibility that that exists at some level of reality. Just the fact that an oxygen molecule is different and does not exist exactly as a hydrogen molecule. And you put two hydrogens with one oxygen molecule together and you get the good stuff called water. So there's differentiation, but it's a matter of compatibility. And we know all things aren't compatible in a nice, easy way. You put some chemicals together, one molecule from this and that, you actually get an explosion, they blow each other up. Yeah, well, so existence is not all wonderfully harmonic at some sense, and at another sense, it all belongs, right? That's the hospitality of what we might call the universe, the big U, the big E of existence and existences. So to them back to the model of fearlessnesses, what I'm really trying to get, and it's related to the dream and it's related to my demonstration this morning. I may not be able to explain all the ways it's related, so I leave that up to you as a viewer who can watch this video many times, and myself as well. Analyze it critically, meditate upon it, think about it, and that will be the learning, the co-learning. And if you exchange back with me, then we just continue, in a copotensity of creativity, and imagination, and criticality, all working to better figure out, better come to know and understand. And so this map is a map of understanding. And I'm calling it fearlessnesses this morning for, I haven't done that before. That's a new word I've kind of put together in a very kind of awkward way based on this dream, based on having this image while I'm laying in bed in the dark, in my hypnopompic state of consciousness in between sleep world, dream world, and this now world. And I get this idea of this jar of water and the stone, and I said I should do a video about this. Not should, but I ought to. It'd be good to. It'd be great to. It might be useful to. Something. So it is really something. And that's really my existence. I'm coming to say to my existence, something is okay to just be something, even though I may feel this incredible vibration of, you do not belong here. We do not want to invite you fully in the hospitality of the universe. Well, that's my experience in being born in 1952 and coming to this age of 71 and 9 months. So I start this model. This is on some of my videos and some of my publications. But I've never really gone deeply into it. I'm not going to here either. I just want to mix it with all the other aspects of the collage of today's messaging. And this arrow really is saying, this is like the toss of the ball from me to somewhere. And don't think about that ball ending in that fellow's hand in my dream, but think about that ball will pass on to another. So this is like a passing on, passing through, a pathing with. And notice I went from passing to pathing in that last little Freudian slip of my tongue, and that's probably very accurate to the model. And so I actually then label that typically in this model of great motivations, which is another way to say and think about this, is fearlessness. And fearlessnesses along that fearlessness path come in three sort of categories, which are just generic. So the first one, which is the base of this existence, so it's kind of an ontological developmental reality or evolutionary historical reality that I'm also trying to mark here in this path, that we ought to pay attention to this first foundational, the great. And as you can see, it's a much larger, you're going to see it's much larger than the other two. In fact, I think I'll even extend that line just to give you a sense of the volume. It is the foundation. So of course it's larger. It is like this foundation. That doesn't mean it has more depth of reality and importance, but it has more foundation of reality. It carries that base. And that's what we first sort of live through, in some sense, from some kind of origin point here in development, from individual, collective. Try to think of this in the biggest picture of development. Is one way to work with this model. It's not the only way to work with this model. You may come up with some more creative ideas. And so what do I label that area, that kind of a zone, an ecology? It's one of the fearlessnesses of the three that I'll arc out today. And simply makes sense to me that what would be at the base of that great path or motivation is fear. It's within the word itself, right? You can see it. It's there's the base root word, the base root foundation of existences. And this is particularly relating to, but not exclusively, but particularly, and it's easier to see that it runs with the living. Again, the living versus the non-living, that is a very fine line. I'm not going to argue that case today between those and whether it's even an important case to make or not. But it's easier to just grasp the living feels more vulnerable than the non-living. That's one way to understand this distinction between those. And life, capital L-I-F-E, is a kind of a way to express the vulnerability of where we start the living. We start, and when I say we start, what I'm saying, we foundationally are built upon an architecture of a fear intelligence. And that's a defense intelligence. That's an integrity intelligence in a way. So you can see many terms could be played. I'm not trying to explain my whole theory and model here in less than 10 minutes now. I'm more giving you the picture, the vision that I have had, coming from all the research, coming from many dreams, coming from many performances and models, and the way as I, as a teacher, attempt to build, maybe a useful model that can really assist humans to, suffer less, not create excessive suffering, fear, violence, destruction. But there always will be some of all of those. That is the negotiation. That is the territory. As I say, and you remember my dream, it was like, it's still the territory that someone is dominating through ownership in this divine so-called, quote, right to their existence being more important than mine in some kind of place, or even overall. We should exist, you shouldn't. This is kind of the maximum of the horror of excess fear. When it's not negotiated well, the defense is not negotiated well, so it becomes a pathological fear and defense ecology, right? That built the beginning of your organism as an individual, your group, your family, your society, your world, of who you hang around with. And our institutions that support that kind of living and they call it living. But is it really life, capital L, positive? Is it life enhancing and affirmative? Well, many say no. If that turns it, fear itself here could be life enhancing, as this whole trajectory is. Fearlessness says they are life enhancing. But when they become pathological, and that would be because of lack of integration. Let me finish the model, and then I think we'll get to that more. I'm going to put in the next one, and the next one, all becoming less foundational but more significant in the experience of the human and of life. Ponder that. Next, fearlessness is love. That's just a word to try and capture it in a model, a map, of course, inadequate in its of its own to represent what I'm talking about. But it's another fearlessness ecology, the fearlessnesses, and it's more advanced, you could say, more mature, more integrated as it moves. And then freedom would be the other great fearlessness ecology, motivational patterning, call it what you will. I'm not going to try to define each of those other than if you don't get this one first, it's hard to evolve a healthy one here. If you don't get this negotiated really well, this will become distorted and not be a healthy form as well. And so ultimately we want to integrate, that's what this also represents, integrate all of those. Now, what I came up with this morning is thinking about existence, capital E, as in a way being about nothingness. There's no names required for existence to exist. There's no name thinging, right? Noun creating. It's all the sense of being in movement and verb, which is about movement and exchanging and interrelating, not about parts. It's just about existence. In a way, existence, capital E, was part of creating this small e existence that this represented, this performance. And so it's not like they're against each other, big E and small e, but they can be against each other when the small e attempts to make itself the only existence, which is my little e existence. And so E representing ego there, and not in the healthy sense of capital E, ego as a part of movement. That would be another metaphysical argument of the universe, eco and the ego in a lovely integrating metaphysical transformation process that is another lecture and another model. Okay, so I think you get most of the picture here of what I'm onto today. And what's the new addition, as I said, is, I'll do it in another color here. So I've added those two red lines to really represent, and all of these lines could be dashed. They're open-ended, right? Because it's a growing line, so they're porous. And they just sort of differentiate different dimensions of these great motivation patterns, urges, impulses, instincts, call them what you will. And I'm thinking that at every one of those borders of those three fearlessnesses is that in that space of these, they're sort of permeable border spaces. They are a place where, you know, you're not just dependent on this, you're not quite utilizing all of this, and it's in between in at least a couple places that you kind of move into a nothingness, because all of the negative space around this diagram is nothing. It's the infinite. And then there's this small finite aspect, right? The stone in the water in the jar is the finite within all of that will disappear over time, because it all moves back to this source, to nothingness, or call it the eternal, the infinite, the great other, etc., etc. And that's what we often try to use the word spirit, creator, creation, God, Elohim, Yahweh, so on, to represent the all, Allah, thinking of those religions. But in non-Buddhist or other Eastern philosophies, it would just kind of be the no thingness, the whole, the all, right? And even that doesn't necessarily remind us, because even the all has all the nothing in it too. You can't just say it's all things. So that is a place that we have to create. I'm saying healthy development, choices that you make, to enter these places of, really working with fear and negotiating that, understanding that deeply, allowing yourself to move into a place of an experience of nothingness, which is a kind of death from all concepts, all things, all knowing. You enter places in your learning along this path of fearlessness, places in your learning that you leave open-ended and unachieved, which is kind of saying, I don't know everything. I think I might know everything about fear, and I'm ready for, really taking on love. Well, that's one way to approach life, and I think that would be an interesting direction. But also to realize is that I don't know everything about fear, because there's a great infinite other nothing knowing, infinite, that I can't know everything in every moment, and I may never do so. But if you leave those gaps between of entering this nothingness space, it's kind of an existential nothingness. There's a lot of writing about that, and the importance in the mystical traditions as well. That's all part of the path too, right? Where you just have to be in, it might be a really miserable state, a condition too, in a certain way, miserable to the ego that wants to advance, but I want to get to freedom. That's where my destiny is, and so on, right? So then you get the impulse to grow, which is great, but we push it into a hyper growth addiction that we have to get to our destination before I die. Well, no, the space here allows you to die. It allows you to enter a space of dying from that impulse drive to get there, to perfect everything, to get to the highest, so-called, right? So all of those are kind of illusions, and they're very dangerous illusions when they're based on still an unhealthy fear driving the system, or an unhealthy love that drives the system, which will lead to an unhealthy view and image and imaginary for what freedom is for you. Now, some people may say, well, death is the final freedom. Well, that's sort of, you could say that, but it depends on what you left behind you in all your working with the other forms of fearlessnesses. Freedom, fearlessness is not the ultimate. It is the highest of significance, but it is not the ultimate and not the only. That there are these other layers that build the foundation so that you can actually achieve, advance to, get to, embody more the other. So the idea of the model is that all those fearlessnesses are already there, and you want to treat all with respect and not try to usurp or make one better than the other. So you can hear I'm just arcing out some of the principles of understanding that model of development, which I call an integral model of development. So that's probably lots for today. Introduce some new ideas, an image for existence, your existence. And I know myself, as I come right now, you can see I'm in the process of moving. I'm deconstructing my entire basement library once again. 2 years ago, I made a video just moving here, putting it together. Right there is my drill that I have in that video. You can watch that 2 years ago when I first came to this new place we just moved. And now we're having to move again for lots of reasons. This is not our house, and this is not our property. We're renting a space in another property, and the people who own this house, thank you for gifting and sharing their house with us, but they will be moving in for the first time in their retirement, which comes in, by next year, summer. So you can see there's just this process of hospitality, but then we also have to pay the price, and we have to pay rent, and we have to do all these things. We have to move, and I have the huge library, as you can see, boxes and boxes, and many you can't see, and I don't like any of it. And so this morning I have a dream. This morning I decide to do a lecture on video, YouTube, and share it in a sense of hospitality, and we're learning and co-learning together with you. Thanks for joining me this morning, and wish me the best on my move. I will see you probably not for another video, probably until I get well moved in sometime in mid-May, maybe. Might be earlier, but don't expect anything more. You won't be disappointed. And best to you, and look forward to further connections in that springtime of mid-May.